good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. It's kind of hard to believe that we've taken such a long break for Christmas break. I had to go back and watch and see where we cut off. Do you remember which Bible character we were studying in the Old Testament when we stopped? Oh, I thought you were going to give me a hint there. There we go. Peter threw me off a bit. We're talking about Samson and Samson's strength. And the strength that Samson had. And we've talked about a few different things that Samson did to show his strength. Well, Samson got himself into a bit of trouble when he was going to be married to a Philistine woman. And what we find out in Judges chapter 16, boys and girls, is that Samson didn't learn his lesson that time because he's going to do the very same thing again. Well, before we jump right into that, there's 3 verses at the beginning of 16 that kind of show us again, Samson's strength. I'm just going to read us those 3 verses, and then we're going to launch into Samson and Delilah. So in chapter 16 of Judges, verse number 1, then went Samson to Gaza and saw there an harlot and went in unto her. And it was told the people of Gaza, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in and laid wait for him all the night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning when it is day, we shall kill him. They are hiding out, boys and girls. They know he's there, and they're going to get him in the morning. They are waiting so quiet. Verse number 3, and Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and went away with them bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. Samson's so strong, the men come to get him. He literally picks up the gates of the city with the posts and just walks out and sets them on a hill like it's nothing. Boys and girls, the gates to the city would have been huge. A chariot, a horse and chariot could have gone through those gates. And yet Samson was strong enough to pick them up and carry them outside of the city. Well, Samson does fall in love with another Philistine woman. Not a good idea, boys and girls. The Philistines are the enemies of the Israelites, and the Israelites are supposed to be conquering the Philistines. Samson's supposed to be leading the Israelites, and yet he's making friends with the Philistines. Well, he likes this girl, Delilah, and she must have been pretty, I'm guessing, boys and girls, for him to fall in love with her. He falls in love with her. He wants to marry her, and Delilah gets a little talking to by some men of the Philistines. So this group of Philistine men came, and they're like, hey, if you find out, Peter nearly just took my head off. All right. If you find out what his secret is, we will pay you 1,100 pieces of silver. Wow, think of that money. What can she do with 1,100 pieces of silver? She is excited. Money. Look at this money, and her eyes get big. She's so excited. It's like, well, I'll just find out what Samson's strength is. So she sweet talks Samson, and she begs Samson, oh, Samson, if you love me, you'd tell me. Surely you would tell me the secret to your strength. And Samson's like, all right, I'll tell you. Wait, boys and girls, should he tell the secret of his strength? Should he give that away? No, he shouldn't. I mean, he's in the wrong place at the wrong time already. He shouldn't be there. And now he's being tempted to tell the secret of his strength. So he says, all right, Delilah, I'll tell you. All you have to do is take 7 green withs, okay, which would be like vines that were still filled with sap, that aren't dry. Yeah, it sounds yummy to you, doesn't it, Peter? Take those 7 vines and tie me up. And that will take away my strength. Delilah's like, yes, I've got this figured out. So she gets those men gather around. And oh, Samson, he's just so tired. He falls asleep. And Delilah does what Samson says. Ties the 7 green, we'll call them vines, the 7 green vines around him. And she's like, Samson, wake up. The Philistines are upon you. He wakes up. He breaks those vines. The Bible says it's as if a thread got touched by fire. Breaks those vines as if it's nothing. Delilah's like, wait, what? You tricked me? Like, why would you do that? And so she begs more and more. She's like, Samson, you've got to tell me. You've got to tell me what your strength is. Now, boys and girls, if Delilah's already tried that, would you trust her to tell her? Well, Samson does. He says, all right, all you have to, yeah, he's not real bright. He says, all right, all you have to do is take brand new ropes and tie those around me, and I will be as if I have no strength. So I did agree to let Peter tie me up, only I am not nearly as strong as Samson by any stretch of the imagination. Not really strong at all. Peter's probably much stronger than I am. So maybe we're doing this backwards. Oh, man. I don't know here. Getting a little nervous. I see some duct tape coming out behind the camera. But, Samson gets tied up with these ropes. And it's the same story, boys and girls. Samson falls asleep. And Delilah's tied him up. And she wakes him up by saying, the Philistines are upon you. She wakes him up. And he throws off the cords as if they're a thread. Hint, boys and girls, I left my hands apart. Peter is stronger than I am. But tears the cords off just as if they were a piece of thread. He takes the cords off. Then the next thing is that there would be, if she would tie his hair into 7 locks on a loom, then he would lose his strength. So she does it again. He falls asleep. She puts his hair, yeah, that's right, Peter. We could go for a nap, huh? I need a nap. Ties the hair on a loom. And then when he ties the hair on the loom, he wakes up again the next morning and it didn't work. Okay, so boys and girls, 3 times, Samson has told Delilah what to do. And 3 times it hasn't worked. Well, boys and girls, you would think that Samson would learn from this lesson, but he doesn't. A 4th time and a final time. Let's look at verse number 17. Delilah guilts him into it and says, if you don't tell me, then you don't really love me. Verse number 17 says that he told her all his heart and said unto her, there hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me. Yeah, Peter. And I shall become weak and be like any other man. Boys and girls, there were 3 times that he had told Delilah, and they were lies, but 3 times she tried it. So why on the 4th would Samson really tell her? I have no idea, boys and girls. My guess is Peter thinks out of love. Could have been out of love. Could have been out of pride. He may not have really realized that God really would take his strength away. That was in verse 17. Verse 18, and when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he hath showed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. They're like, all right, we've got it this time. They bring the money for her. They're ready and they're waiting. Verse 19, and she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. Verse 20, and she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before, and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. Boys and girls, he got up to do it. He said, I'll do it again. What he didn't realize was that the Lord was gone from him, boys and girls. The strength that he had was gone. Samson had sinned, boys and girls. Sin takes us farther than we ever want to go. It keeps us longer than we want to stay, and it costs us more than we want to pay. Samson's about to pay a really big price for the sin that he's committed. Boys and girls, our sin sent Jesus to the cross. The good news is that God gives us good news in his word. You're going to have to come back next week to find out about Samson's sin and what it cost him. We've told you the sin, but what's it going to cost him? And boys and girls, what will it take for God to get your attention that sin has a really big price tag? Boys and girls, I hope this week when you sin, you'll ask God to forgive you and you'll thank him for the good news, the gift of salvation that he's given. Have a good week, boys and girls.